So I notice a lot of booktubers this summer are going through a move, and it's a pretty stressful life event. I mean, it's not quite death in the family, loss of a job, or divorce, but it is one of those top stressors, and this is a completely planned event. Now imagine one day coming home from work and finding movers as well as police officers with one hand resting on the revolver and the other hand holding an eviction notice. You're given a choice by the movers. You can either move your stuff out onto the curb or have it moved into storage. Now add to that fact that perhaps all the money you have left in the world is the change you have in your pocket. And with it comes the realization you have to make a choice. You can either choose to house your stuff or house your family, just not both. Unfortunately, this is a fairly common occurrence. In Milwaukee alone, involuntary displacement, which includes formal and informal evictions, landlord foreclosures, and building condemnation between 2009 and 2011 affected 1 in 8 Milwaukee renters. And Milwaukee isn't unique. The numbers are consistent across cities of similar sizes. This includes Kansas City, Chicago, and Cleveland. Milwaukee just happens to be where 36-year-old Harvard professor with a PhD in sociology had decided to embed for well over a year in order to write Evicted, Poverty and Profit in an American City. Now, the author Matthew Desmond is white, educated white. It's not much of a stretch to imagine him with a jaunty sweater tied around his neck, the wine spritzer in his hand. Now, imagine him embedded in a trailer park and spending well over a year in an inner city tenement. This is Niles Crane quietly observing Ricky, Bubbles, and Julian at the trailer park. Unfortunately, the reality is far more grim. We're introduced to Lamar. He's a double amputee whose feet swelled black with frostbite when he was high on crack and hiding out in an abandoned building. After eating snow for 7 days, he jumped out of an upper story window. When he woke up, he was in a hospital and he found he had lost both of his legs. He's clean now, but he's still trying to raise his two sons on $628 a month. After paying rent, he has less than $2 a day left to him. There's Scott, who was once a promising nurse whose opioid addiction cost him his license and his job and is now trying to get back on his feet in a rundown old trailer park. And there's the women like Arlene trying to raise 2 kids. She spends over 70% of her income on rent. And she, along with the rest of the people at the bottom of the market, struggle because they in fact pay more for utilities than those in middle and high income brackets because they can't afford things like proper insulation. They're living in buildings with shoddy construction and obviously working with less than energy efficient appliances. It's a precarious monetary balancing act that many renters are faced with. And a single incident can lead to a missed payment, but a lot of landlords don't even wait for missed payments to evict someone. Trouble that brings the police can also lead to an eviction. Women who call the police when an abusive boyfriend show up have to worry about the threat of losing their home. Maybe it's a kicked-in door or a noise complaint. Best not to call the police or have them get involved when the choice is your own safety or keeping a roof over your children's head. Matthew Desmond notes that incarceration had come to define the lives of men from black neighborhoods. Eviction was defining the lives of women. Black men were locked up, black women were locked out. And children didn't help. Children didn't protect you from eviction. They actually exposed you to it. A frantic 911 call after an asthma attack can bring about people who might notice the black mold in the washroom or a leaky ceiling or a sagging balcony and bring it to the city's attention. It's easier and cheaper to simply evict those people whose only crime was drawing it to the attention of the authorities. And they'll have no problems filling up that unit after they've evicted that first group. Landlords can rent units with property code violations that don't even meet the bare minimum livability requirements as long as they're upfront about the problems. And many people and renters are just simply too desperate to care. Landlords are finding the inner city to be very, very lucrative. As one landlord puts it in the book, the hood is good. There's an episode in the book where one of the buildings owned by a landlord Matthew is shadowing catches on fire. The renter Kamala manages to escape with her children, all of them except for a baby who dies in the fire. There's supposed to be smoke alarms in the bedroom, but no one can recall hearing any, and the landlord worries she's at risk. When the fire inspector calls the next day to tell her she's off the hook, she has one question: does she have to return Kamala's rent? The answer is no, and so she doesn't. It's said that the poor are constantly given evidence of their own irrelevance. Once you've been evicted, getting that next home becomes that much more difficult. you can lose your possessions in storage, and in fact, 70% of the time, that's exactly what happens. And finding a new home can monopolize your time, which means misshifts, which could lead to job loss. Children are forced to go to a new school. Benefits can be cut when notices are sent to the wrong address. And of course, depression is all too common. All right, so this isn't exactly the most uplifting book out there, and I found the footnotes to be a bit of a distraction. I recommend that you just sort of read it through and check the footnotes at the end of every chapter to make it more of a seamless reading experience. In the book, Desmond watches Lorraine throw an entire month's worth of food stamp away on a single meal that consists of lobster tails, crab legs, shrimp, and lemon meringue pie. And it's not the spending that makes her poor, it's poverty that sometimes causes her to spend money this way. When there's no hope for financial stability, you look for pleasure where you can. There's another episode where Vanetta and Crystal are in a McDonald's, homeless themselves, when a disheveled boy walks in, and they manage to scrounge together enough change to buy him lunch. Their actions seem anti-intuitive, and I don't have the answers or understand the thinking that goes behind that. So all I can do is read a little bit more and hopefully expand my understanding. Anyway, think of this as a bit of literary fiber in your reading diet. It's Evicted by Matthew Desmond. I think it was a great and powerful read. I've actually had a really great 2 weeks of reading, and I'm really excited to share some of the books that I've finished. Hopefully you guys have had a great reading week as well, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.